a struggling and dreaming father in Golden Door. You've also seen him in another father role recently, Sicilian Ghost Story, by Antonio Piazza and Fabio Grassadonia, which we showed on this campus on December 3rd. And in many other movies. We'll talk about this in a moment. I'm very, very pleased to have him here. This is the first Inserra event of the spring season. For those of you who are new to the Inserra endowment, it is a fund that was created by a local Italian American, very generous, who allows us to have wonderful guests on campus and all kinds of shows, film screenings, theater plays, and so on and so forth. Tonight we have Vincenzo Amato, in part because for those of you who come from the community, we screened, we saw in class Golden Door, Nuovo Mondo, 2006, and I hope that those of you who are not in class are familiar with the film so that we can have a conversation together. And Vincenzo is also a neighbor. He lives in Maplewood now, and so it was very easy to involve him in this class, which is Italian Americans in Film, with 100 students, which I think is saying a lot about the interest of our students in Italian history and in Italian diaspora. So please have a seat, Vincenzo. I don't know if you want to say
Thank you. I say thank you for coming, standing up. And I dressed as a professor for the day. And so, but don't be afraid. I'm not going to give you any grades. You can ask whatever you want.
So just, I'm going to stand here because I have to take care of the technology. So Vincenzo is originally from Palermo, an interesting connection to the film, as you know. Lived in Rome and moved to New York, another very important biographical element for us. Comes from a family of artists, is also a sculptor, although tonight he's here as an actor. And he was in a movie by Piales in 1997 called Once We Were Strangers. And hopefully we'll have time to look at a clip from that movie, which is also about an Italian immigrant in New York, but a very different one, in the 1990s, and it's when Piales himself was living in New York, so he'll tell us about that. He also had a lead role in Grazia's Island. In Italian it's called Respiro, a beautiful movie about Lampedusa, which is today considered the Ellis Island of Europe. Ironically, the film is not about immigration. And then Nuovo Mondo, Golden Door, 2006, nominated, where he got a nomination for Best Actor at the David di Donatello, which is the Italian Oscar award. The film itself won many awards, including the Silver Lion in Venice. He's also been in other movies. I'm going to mention a couple, but I'd like for you during the evening to tell us about recent roles. Unbroken, for example, about another Italian-American, Luca Zamparini, and L'Ora Legale, for those of you who know Ficarra and Picone. They're two classics of contemporary Sicilian comedy. So this is to give you a little bit of an introduction about Vincenzo, who I'm sure will add many more elements. Would you like to say something before we move to the first part of the film?
No, we're gonna talk. The main film we're gonna talk about it was called Nuovo Mondo, literally New World. Here was called The Golden Door, after a famous poem about the immigrants that maybe you teach. I don't know this poem.
Lazarus, so we should actually include it next time.
Yes, it's an important poem from an American poet about those who come here. And this film, it's very important for me because it was a very difficult role to play, because it told my character it's an ancient man, and the director wanted to tell more, beside the story of the immigration, really. He really wanted to tell talk about the difference between when people became ancient, from ancient became modern. So I play a guy who lives in an ancient world with pagan rituals and beliefs, and he has a vision of the world that is probably like 2,000 years ago. And then all of a sudden he's thrown into the modern world. He goes to America, and I always say that this guy really, these people like in 1910, like this, they didn't really, when they went to America, they didn't watch movies about America, they didn't see photographs, they didn't know anything about this place except for what they heard. So for them, it was really like traveling for us to another galaxy, I would say, because really like Saturn or Mars, we've seen photos. So if we go to Mars, it wouldn't be that big of a deal because these people really went to a place that they didn't know anything about. The only thing that they saw was this kind of photographs that you want to talk about, that they were like fake photographs that they were showing about these huge onions that were growing in America, or the rivers of milk. So it's an amazing journey that I go through, and it was tough for me because I'm a modern person, I'm an artist living in New York, and so to play that kind of man was hard. So the director forced me to go and work in the countryside for a month in the summer and a month in the winter as a peasant with an old farmer. And so I had to work the old way with this farmer for 2 months. And while I was doing that, preparing for the film, I really always felt like I was like a contemporary dancer rather than a peasant. I always felt my body was not right for that, and then I was too modern and too much. So I was looking at this man who was teaching me, I was observing him, and I always thought I was not right for this work. Then I suffered a lot. I was plowing the land for months, and then once we finally got to the costume fitting for the film, they gave me the costume, and I said, you know what, I think I worked hard, so maybe I deserve this aristocratic title of peasant, of ancient peasant, which for me was like an important title. So I think then it worked out, but it's really like, it's impossible to think how these people 100 years ago were working the land and living in nature really felt about the world. So that was an attempt.
Pretty big one. The students read a review by Gonzaga in a film review, and your interpretation is called flawless. So I think, I mean, it's a compliment for the peasant who trained you, right?
See, no, he came to the premiere. He said he played very well. But that was for me the best review.
You got the approval. Okay, so the first clip is a little bit longer. So get the lights. I wanted to share one portion in order to get the sense of the rhythm of the film as well, and also to introduce an important aspect of the film, which is its division in 3 parts. So the first one is about Sicily, the land of departure. The second one is about the voyage. Arguably, this film is the very first one that was made about the migrant voyage. We had to wait until 2006 to tell a story of 150 years of leaving Italy as part of this enormous diaspora out of the country. And the third one is the arrival at Ellis Island, much more than the arrival in New York per se. So students have been really intrigued by the representation of Sicily, this barren land, and also by this family and the ways in which it perceives reality. So I'm going to call on Theo Devlamnik. Is he here? Theo? Yes, and then also Anthony Gula, so you can share your questions, and then Vincenzo can expand also on this scene.
All right. First, Theo.
Yes.
Hi, Mr. Amato. I wanted to ask you, were the Sicilians in fact very superstitious, at least in certain rural areas at the time? Or was that just an element created in addition, just to create more?
No, absolutely, they still are. I think most southern Italians are very superstitious. In Sicily also, and I think especially, yes, in the countryside, that's like I was saying before, this, when I say pagan, it's basically that there is an official Christian religion, but very much people living in the, and I think I approve this. If you live in nature, you try not only to see the seasons or you learn nature, you learn also you learn that certain things have to go a certain way, and then you hear things that other people don't hear, and so you respect certain signs also. So then you become also kind of victim of superstition. But basically, it's superstition. I mean, it's like the story of the snake. It's like more complicated. It's about like a woman that need the sexual. Whatever, like she wants to get married, she has a sexual desire, whatever, she has to be cleansed, many things. But yes, to answer to you, yes.
Thank you. And I had a second part to that question. Do the characters you portray in the family, no, in the movie, sorry, Salvatore and his family, Mancusos, do they realistically reflect the story of your ancestors? Or?
No, my ancestors no, because as I was saying, it was very difficult for me because I come from the city of Palermo. It's a big city, and I am from a very bourgeois family. My father is a lawyer, and as a matter of fact, when I went to work for the peasant who taught me the ways, the old ways, I couldn't really understand the way he talked because, and it's an hour drive from my city on the mountains where I went to work because they have a different dialect way of speaking. That's why I wanted to go work for me, because I wanted to learn a dialect more from the countryside. But then I learned to understand it. But all my friends from the city, they don't know a word, they don't get a word of what he says. And I find him very sweet, his accent, and I used it in the film.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then Anthony had an interesting question about the approach in the film. Are you here, Anthony? Anthony Kula? Yeah, okay. This is an attendance moment too. I'll ask it because I think he was very intrigued by the mythical approach to immigration. We hear so much about immigration in these days, but the film, as some of the students were saying during the class or before you came, realized that this is such a unique dimension that is added to what it means to leave and to desire another place, right? So can you tell us a little bit about this myth around America?
Well, me myself, I moved to America by myself out of the blue. I didn't move because I was starving or there was no other place to go. It was very much like a mythical decision in my life because I was 27 and I came here for the wedding of a friend of mine. And then I met a sculptor who was doing amazing things, and then he proposed me to work together. Then I went back to Italy and I said, what am I doing? Like if I don't live, so I was confronted with the possibility of like all of a sudden changing my life completely. And so I abandoned everything I had, which in my case were like a motorcycle, an apartment, a girlfriend, and then I went to America without nothing waiting for me because then the job wasn't there anymore. But the days before, the month before coming here, it was like a haunting thing. It's not something that you say, okay, I'll go to Pennsylvania, I don't know, Florida. It's really something that you're gonna change your life. It was a mythical thing. And then when I came here, it was really mythical. It was adventurous and beautiful, and every obstacle I encountered here was a fantastic adventure. And not for everybody it's like this, but it's mythical. I think for most of the people it's mythical. It's not only a thing you do because you want to earn more money or you don't have a job. It's a mythical thing.
And certainly for the people in the
Yeah, and also for those people, like I said, they were going to another galaxy, totally, completely to a completely different world.
The second clip that we're going to look at is one of the most beautiful moments in the film. We just watched it in class, but it's worth looking at it again. It's the moment when the ship leaves the harbor. And then right after it, we're going to see the immigrants mingling on the ship. And there's something else to say about language and identity.
Yeah. I want to say, if I can say it before that, the director, Emanuele Crealese, who's also a very good friend of mine, and he taught me how to act. I started with him. He brought this movie because he had this idea. He also immigrated. He was living in the US. He was working as a waiter in Manhattan. He did this immigrant work. He had this image that you're gonna see in this movie. All of a sudden, he had this image. He saw this thing in his head, and so he says that he constructed the whole film around this frame that he wanted. And I think it's beautiful because cinema, it's one of the forms of storytelling. Now we can write a book, etc. But with the movies, the images are so important. And I think sometimes a movie can be even like not a perfect movie that you like, or it's a bad movie, or whatever. But sometimes even one or two images in a film can be really revolutionary for your brain, no? Because you see, like a director can make you see things in a different way, just with one thing. I think that's so he made the movie around this stuff. This image.
This is a beautiful moment, about both the departure, the separation between the land and the immigrants, but also a moment of meeting, a moment of discovery about themselves. So I don't know if Julie is here, but she had, yes, go ahead if you want to ask your question.
In the scene on the ship when the men are picking out their cards and introducing each other, Salvatore makes a comment that he's not used to speaking with foreigners. And one of the men replies, we're not foreigners, we're Italians. And then don't you know you're Italian? So I had the question, how is it that Salvatore doesn't know he's Italian? When we said in the first half of the early part of the 20th century, about 50 years after the unification, so how is it that he's not aware of that?
Well, because in those days, because also the history of Italy, really there is not, even now, there is not really a national feeling like here. Like say here everybody has the American flag on the porch. In Italy the only flag you see probably is at the Prime Minister office, outside, and at the stadium when there is the World Cup. But otherwise people don't really care for that, they really care for their own town, and sometimes they care mostly for their family. So the nation, especially in Sicily, is the family, then the town. And so whoever is from the other town, preferably shouldn't marry my daughter, because I'd rather have somebody from the, or whatever, if he's gonna marry my daughter, I'm gonna have some problem because they are in a certain way in that town. That it's really like, so he hears about these people from these towns that he never heard of, and so for him it's like foreigners. So I think we a little bit exaggerated the thing, but it was basically like this. The guy, one from Naples, these are places that a guy like Salvatore Mancuso never heard of, or maybe just heard about. It's faraway places. Probably Salvatore Mancuso was just working his land there and went to the one town, that's it, in his life.
But this is, as you're saying, a really important statement about where Italy was at that point, because it was just unified.
Yeah, it was a recent thing, and it was a forced unification. It's not that people really wanted that. It was imposed by a northern region of Italy who just unified and do everything. People really didn't care. Especially in Sicily, we had so many different dominations, so this was just like another one, a new government. So they don't. There is no independent spirit in Sicily. Nobody wants independence, but nobody really cares if they're Italian or whatever. It's just like the new people who rule. So the guy, for instance, this peasant who was called Lito, who I learned from, he always talks about the young people in his town. That he always was saying, he says, I never leave. He said, but the young people they go to the beach. From the mountain, it's kind of he says, he always says, no, now they have the car. And they like to go to the beach. I don't know why they go, but they like it. So they venture into this trip that's probably 20 minutes down the mountains with a car, but it's a weird thing to go somewhere else.
Tell us a little bit more about these scenes and the vision of Crialese around this. You said that it was a pretty seminal moment for him. That's how the movie started.
Yeah, this scene, for me, it's amazing when I see the separation of the masses, because it's really, I think that scene, like I was saying, like cinema is great, because that scene, it just says so much. It says more than like a volume of 1,000 pages about the immigration. It's just there. So for me to watch it now, here, in America, etc., I just tell myself, I look again at the scene, and you see the people on the left and the people on the right, like they are the same people, but then people on the left on the boat, like, are gonna become like you guys or like me. One becomes, I don't know, like a famous judge of the Supreme Court in America. The other becomes a gangster. The other will become just a storekeeper. Completely different life on the other side. And most of them, they never saw each other anymore.
Crialese did a lot of research for this movie, correct?
Yeah, but this was really something that he wanted to do, and then he started researching, yes, because it was kind of an obsession for him, this thing of the immigration. In fact, his first film, that's also my first film, is an actor who was about an immigrant, but in the 90s. But so he went to Ellis Island and he studied a lot of things, and you'll see in the movie there are things that pretty much everything was happening, even the intelligence tests, and these are things that repeat a little bit. Now there is this nationalism, this kind of with immigration. The story is always pretty much the same. But in those days, there is no accusation here, because in those days, at least, Ellis Island was very organized. They were doing some racist stuff in terms of the quota, but it was a very organized place where they were actually letting people in, or not. But there was something. Where in Italy now, with all these people coming, there is no organization, really, but there is no plan.
But I think for Crialese, in a way, that was the absurdity, that you can organize this to such a rational level. It was really...
then it becomes the paradox of like the American typical philosophy of life, that everything can be solved, there is always a solution, and we're going to have the right solution. And often, here in America, we find the wrong solution, because here at this place in Ellis Island, they were doing these stupid tests, or like to understand if ethnicity was smarter than the other, and then if you did a certain test in a way, then you were more intelligent or not, and so they were trying. There was a lot of weird stuff going on. But it's fascinating. When I watch this series, it's fascinating because we shot the Sicily part of the film, we shot it in Sicily, and the part inside the ship and the Ellis Island part, we shot it in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Because we couldn't shoot the real Ellis Island because it's impossible. And so we found a country, Argentina, which is a place full of Italians who emigrated also like here, like 100 years ago. And there is a lot of people with Italian faces we could use as extras in the big scenes. And so the director went to the homeless shelters because so we could find, he could find skinny people or people with the hunger in their eyes. And because also in America, in the United States now there are a lot of Italian Americans, but everybody here has been eating a lot of good food for 2-3 generations. So the cheeks are full and the eyes are appeased, even though there is a certain, the faces, I can tell when somebody is from where I'm from. But in Argentina, they were not so lucky, like people got lucky here. So there is a lot of poor people, and that's why usually there we could find also cheap sheep to use, etc.
But those were difficult to shoot, those scenes you were saying?
No, that was not difficult. We just we filled the ship with these people who were very funny and nice, and they were happy and work, and then we filled the dock with the rest, and I was on the ship with my family there. And he knew what he wanted to do, so this was very easy, like probably an hour like this we were done. For a weird, sometimes the easiest things that become the most difficult ones, so in sets. But this one that looks difficult was very easy.
So you just mentioned the Ellis Island tests, and this is something that Crialese researched very carefully. He was actually interested in eugenics when he started this project. And so that's why he paid so much attention to these moments. Again, these are quite unusual scenes, especially from the Italian perspective, because despite the fact that we had between 26 and 27 million who left the country, not many movies have been made about this topic, and that's why Crialese's decision has been very important. So here we see.
So you're gonna show the
tests.
Yeah, I wanna say that there was until the 20s in Ellis Island they were doing this eugenics. I don't know if they studied this, but there was a program that then was continued by the Nazis, which was called the eugenics. So there was a theory according to which like you could find like according in the traits of the people or in from their breed or where they were from, a way to understand their superiority or inferiority as a brain inferiority or as a race indeed. And so there was actually official catalogs of people of ethnicities which were considered of lower intelligence, a little bit like what we hear sometimes today. So there was like, for instance, at a certain point, like Southern Italians were considered not wanted, like a Jewish Southern Italian, Greeks, mostly like I would say from the south of the Mediterranean, and they were preferred were like the tall, blonde Scandinavians. That was a favored thing. But there was a whole catalog. So, and this was developed. There was an institute of eugenics in Long Island, and I think the company was what is now AT&T. It's like the same company was in the 1910 and 1920s.
The irony is that this comes out of positivism, which was also developed in Italy in the second half of the 1800s with people like Niceforo, and these theories were actually absorbed by the United States and put in place at Ellis Island. Clearly this is not it, and for the longest time, people have wondered where was he shot, and now you told us it was Buenos Aires. We have two students who had questions about these Ellis Island scenes, Matthew Tuli and Shoshana. Matthew? Or Shoshana? Yes, go ahead.
Okay, first I'd like to say thank you for taking your time and coming here.
I can't hear you.
I first wanted to say thank you for taking your time for coming here.
Thank you very much.
I was wondering like why people were so accepting of how they were treated when they got here, and like if anybody more than like the mother acted out in like real life.
I don't know if there was more people acting out. The mother was like, the mother does that because of the film. She has to give this speech, also because. But what is true is that she didn't get in. I mean, they didn't let her. She didn't pass the test, and they don't want to win. So that's true, and that happened a lot, which is amazing because you think like after such a forget about the journey, they decide to go to America, and imagine. I mean, you have to sell all the animals. You have to tell the entire town that you're going to America. So like it's a big thing. Like then you disappear. You go to America, do this trip. You arrive here, and then all of a sudden, everybody of your family it's accepted and you are not. Can you imagine? It was a horrible thing. I mean, she has to go back by herself because she wants the kids to maybe to stay here. So imagine this lady going back there by herself. It was horrible, but it happened a lot. It happened a lot. There was a lot of people who got refused for different reasons. And but the first part of your question was
Why were people so accepting when you answered it?
why they were accepting, like who the immigrants.
Yeah, the way they were treated.
Because you are. When you are put through a machine like an immigration system, or like even when you come to college, the first day that you enroll, you have to go to these offices. You are kind of you feel threatened a little bit, no? So if you see people in line, you immediately go in line, and you're not gonna be like your crazy self, like you are in a club. Because you feel like okay, you become a victim of the machine, even because you wanna be accepted. That's why I think. So they wanted to be accepted, so they would do anything. And you see it at every border or every frontier. It's like this.
I think it was Matthew that had a question about shooting these scenes.
This movie does a great job showing the hardships that immigrants face while traveling to America and the difficulties that they had to go through once they arrived at Ellis Island. Which was the most difficult or uncomfortable scene for you to shoot, and why?
Difficult and uncomfortable. Uncomfortable. For me, I can tell you many, but for many reasons. Like uncomfortable. No, there is a naked scene. That's not so much. That's not that uncomfortable. Not for me. But then there is a scene, for instance, where I had to pee. I remember, and I think the director says it's the best scene that I did in the film. And so that was uncomfortable. But it's a funny thing I like to share with you. Like we were stuck in this basement and we were waiting to get the passports, and then she arrives at the Charlotte Gainsbourg. She arrives and all of a sudden she's with us. She says, I'm with them. We are fine. So they took a long time, and I had to go to the restroom, and I said, oh, I'll go after this take. But the take wasn't happening, about 20, 30, 40 minutes. But then I said, no, I'll do this sacrifice, whatever, I can. So I think somehow it helped. But, but the most difficult, like seriously difficult, for me the most, I can't say, because really I'm trying to go through difficult days, no? There is a beautiful photo that maybe I can share with you. When we do the scenes in the countryside with the huge carrots and the things, and I have these visions. There is a scene that I was reminded because the director recently sent me some photos from the set. And there is this photograph of me from the back, and the director is telling me, he told me what he was telling me because I forgot. So he wanted me to look at the horizon just before we decide to leave our country and to emigrate. So he asked me specifically, the director said, Vincenzo, please, I beg you, I want you to look at the horizon with compassion. That was his director thing. And all I see in these photos is just me like this. And then he's telling me this, and in the other photo, there is me like this, and him like looking at my face, if I'm indeed doing that. And I don't know really what he wanted me to do, but he's great at giving you directions because he didn't want me to just show compassion, but that was his strange way of getting what he wanted. And I love this director Emanuele because he's able to direct even the kids, people who never acted before, and he never gives you director's notes. He doesn't tell you about feelings that you have to feel or recalling or intellectualizations of the scene that you're making. He just tries to take your feelings somewhere where you can actually live that situation in a real way. And I never really met other directors who do that. Every time I work in a film, I always miss my friend Emanuele. I wish I could work only with him. I hope it's going to happen again soon.
Is he doing something at the moment?
Yeah, he's preparing a new film.
Do we know the subject? Or
No, I don't know. Top secret.
Top secret. You worked with many other directors. Do you want to say something about that?
The other directors I work. Look, this director Emanuele. It's like I tell you briefly the story because I never wanted to be an actor. I never really thought about it. And then when I came to America to work as a sculptor, I was working really in a metal shop in New Jersey, in Irvington, and I was living in the East Village. And so I was renting a little room in the East Village, and I like to smoke my cigarettes, and so I couldn't smoke in the apartment where I was renting a mattress on this little room. So I would smoke on the staircase, and then every day there was this guy who was coming up on the 4th floor, looking at me and entering his apartment, etc. And one day he asked me, "But are you Italian?" By any chance? He goes, "Yes." "Ah, me too. Why do you smoke on the stairs?" And I say, "Well, because the landlord here doesn't let me smoke in the back." "Oh, come inside, we have coffee, you can smoke on that." So, and we became friends, and he was studying cinema at NYU Tisch School, the School of Movie Making. So one day he told me, we became friends, so I was telling him my adventures in the New Jersey, in the metal shop, and he was working as a waiter. And so basically one day he told me, I wrote a script, I want you to read it. And okay, I read the script, I never read the script before. And I liked it, and I said, I like it. And he said, good, because I want you to play the lead role. And I thought, and I said, yeah, okay. Because I thought it was something for school, like to pass the grades or whatever. I thought it was going to be something that he had to show. So I said the famous phrase that he doesn't never forget, that I did it to help these kids, because it was him and another guy who lived in the building, they were both going to the same school, who was going to work in this film. And I said, okay, I do it because I want to help these kids. And he said, how dare? Now he says, how dare you said that? And I forget, I gave you immortality. And you say that you help these kids. Really, it doesn't forget. But so he wrote the script, and then he told me, okay, you're going to play the lead, and then we started the rehearsal part, which was a disaster, because I thought that being an actor, you had to do the impersonation of other famous actors. So I was doing these impersonations of different actors I liked, and he hated it, of course. And so he had to start from scratch, and it basically taught me just to be natural. I mean, that's what's important in a film. Nowadays, unlike theater, you have to be just natural, like it's really happening to you, and that's difficult. But then in reality, it's easy, and especially if you are in the hands of a good director like him. Now, then we did this first film, and we had fun, and the film went to Sundance, in competition, and so we started. Then he became a famous director, and he asked me to work with him twice more. And thanks to the fact that I work with him, I sometimes get calls from Italy especially, or Europe, but also here, and I get a role without auditioning, which is a super luxury for an actor, no? Because I worked on these films, and I'm always very proud, and the other actors don't like that many times. They usually say, what the, this guy didn't even go to school. I've been studying back at whatever all my life, really the call, no? And I know. So then I get these roles in the other films, and I find myself totally, I don't know what to do, because they think that, okay, they can meet the guy from this guy's movies, and that's it. You know, like he's gonna do the magic. But the actors can't really do the magic by themselves. Because especially if I decide to do the magic in somebody in a film, I can't do the magic. I ruin the movie, basically, because the movie is not about me. It's about the director's vision for the film. And so many times I just play very little and wait for something to come. But most of the directors don't know to talk to actors. They don't know to talk at all. They don't know how to talk. They don't know. Some people just tell you, oh, we're gonna do this, and then we do this, okay? That's it. Then sometimes they tell you more intense, less intense, or really dramatic, or something like that. So it's like frustrating sometimes. But what are you gonna do? Then
It's different than
you jump from the skyscraper.
It's different than looking at the horizon with compassion.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, I think in this final part, what you're describing really comes across. It's a particularly intense and lyrical moment, and you're also going to get to see the famous gigantic vegetables that you just mentioned. And so this is the last scene of the film, and the last scene we're going to watch from Nuovo Mondo, and then we have time, I think, for a clip from the other movie that you just mentioned.
Oh my God.
That you helped, where you helped the kids. Topical nature of the subject of the final scene about the separation, because in these days we've been hearing so much about immigrant families being separated, which reminds us of how a very good movie obviously stands the test of time. At the same time, of course, they were curious about why Pietro regained his ability to speak, and if this was planned from the very beginning, or there are things in the movie that were decided on the spot. Is Criadese a person who follows impromptu moments, or everything is very scripted?
This thing of the mute son, he decided to let him speak, I think the day before we shot this. But it works very well because she's transferring, she's going back, she's disappearing, but she's transferring somehow her magic powers to him, and also she is giving her something in return, the young son. So it's like a farewell. But basically, we never really made him mute. We never really thought that he was mute. It was more like he didn't want to talk. More like that's the thing. But it works like this. And yes, Criadese wrote a beautiful script, but once we started acting, once we started shooting the film, every night we would change everything. So every morning we would find everything completely changed. So it was changing a lot, because then it's a good thing to do, because sometimes your characters, once they're alive, then you discover, then if you get excited, you can write new things. So he did that a lot, and the thing of the mute happened, the night before. Because I remember the actor Filippo was very funny. He was always, every day, was saying, no, I never talk. Like, can I say something? Why can't I say something? And then one day he said, you know what, you're gonna talk. Don't worry. So the poor guy never talked for weeks and weeks in the ring. But then when I just laughed watching the tragic scene because I just remember him rehearsing in the car going to set at 4 a.m. He was looking at me, Papa, Alonna dice che the line that he has finally, and so he was repeating this, like he was nervous about saying, Papa. I mean, he says it even now, a lot.
It's the only line in the English pretty special.
But it makes me think, the question you asked me before, actually I think this was the most difficult scene for me. Because it was a long monologue and I had to say these things and a little bit improvised the text I don't know, I mean, like, I didn't want to seem accusatory. So the guy is to be just, I wanted to be light but firm, but I didn't want to be accusatory against the system. I didn't want to do that. At the same time, I wanted to defend what I could defend. So it was difficult, yeah, I remember. I'm watching it now, I say, how did I remember all those things? And it looks like they're coming naturally there.
But it's that type of instinctive moment of survival where you make arguments, right?
Yeah.
In order to make it, and in a way it also shows that simple intelligence of explaining things from a very different point of view, right? And we're not going to do any harm. There's so much time, there's so much work, right?
Yeah, makes sense. But I have to say this is a thing that happens when you like a character that you're playing. After a while, you don't become that character, but the character is basically, you know the character very well. So then you kind of defend the character sometimes when the director wants to do things that you don't want to do, because you don't want to do, because your character doesn't want to do that. And sometimes you have the right to say that, because you know the character then after 2-3 weeks of filming, you know much better than anybody else. Better than the guy who wrote it, for real, because then you are the character there. It's my face there. And preparing it, and just then shooting all those scenes, you know it better. And it's the same like when you play as a kid with your friends, you're doing, I don't know, the cowboy or the pirate. After a while, you know what that pirate is like. You know, like what he says yes to and what he says no to. No.
And we're going to rewind in time. I wonder whether you're going to recognize yourself in this other character. This is the film in which you helped the kids become famous. That is to say, Once We Were Strangers. 1997, this is the film that Crialese shot while he was still a graduate student at NYU. And it is a film about Antonio, who is an undocumented Italian immigrant in New York. This, by the way, is not a big exception because people can come here with a visa and let it expire. And so they end up being technically undocumented, but of course they're not stigmatized like other undocumented immigrants. He has odd jobs and he survives in a big city, mostly sharing his life also with an Indian immigrant. And so the juxtaposition between the two is a reminder of how Crialese has always been interested in issues of immigration, identities that clash and learn from each other. It's a love story as well, and it's a very beautiful, difficult to find movie, by the way. And I want to show you the beginning of it, which has a very lyrical image of another arrival to the United States, and then a film about food on which we can close. Let's see if this works. This is in Poland,
parte di me, sola mia, che la nuova sospira, e che al sole del mattino più dolce si fa, con la furia che improvvisa si anima, e che va, fuggerà dove andrà non lo sa.
Coloration seems to be normal. So can we find something there? Maybe we'll get a little action this time, eh? This product has not yet been tested, at least not extensively. We'll have to monitor it closely, of course.
What is it?
It's a new antidepressant. Quite potent. There aren't supposed to be any noticeable side effects, but that's what they always say. You might experience some digestive problems, and I wouldn't be surprised if your sex drive decreased.
How much?
How am I supposed to know? That's why we're testing it.
I'm getting married tomorrow.
Really? Congratulations.
So, what about?
Ah, I see what you mean. Well, it's up to you. You will be paid more for this one.
So yeah, here we go. The guy says he wants garlic in the carbonara. I don't do anything, do something else. He goes, I already told him, he says he wants garlic in the carbonara. Can you take the pasta, please? Yeah. Excuse me. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm the cook.
Hi.
I would like to know if there is anything else I can do, because I cannot make the carbonara with garlic. But there are many other plates I can cook with garlic.
Thank you.
So today I suggest linguine with clams.
Excuse me. Well, why is that? Why can't you make a carbonara with garlic?
Because carbonara doesn't come with garlic. I cannot mix bacon and eggs with garlic. I'm saying that in your own interest, I mean.
Okay, thank you. Maybe you could recommend a dish.
That's very kind of you. But what's your name?
My name?
Yes, your name.
Antonio.
Antonio. People probably call you Tony, right?
No, Antonio is fine.
Okay, whatever. Listen, I've been eating carbonara with garlic since I was like 10 years old, right? I may not be a chef, but I think I have a pretty good idea how carbonara should be prepared. So I see my mother's half Italian. I'll ask you to go back into the kitchen and prepare the dish the way that I've asked, okay?
Todd,
Yeah.
can you please just drop this?
I'm trying to explain to you that I cannot mix the garlic with bacon and eggs. So it's not the right way to do it. I mean, maybe it's the half Italian way to do it, I don't know.
What? Good. Do you understand English, Tony? I hope you do. Because I'm going to have to ask you to bring over your manager.
Todd,
No.
I really think you should drop this.
Please, let me handle this, okay? Now, could you go get your manager? Because I'd like to speak to him right now. Okay?
I cannot believe you're
Okay.
doing this. I can't believe you're doing this. No, this is ridiculous.
Yes, sir. May I be of some...
The experience of getting to the United States as an immigrant, right, and having simple jobs to survive, and learning about what it means to be Italian on the other side, and how to be perceived as Italian. So I wanted to give you a little taste of this film, which is a love story, as I was saying. He ends up having a love affair with this woman, and it's really sweet and at the same time quite tragic and dramatic. Do you have any final question for Vincenzo? Nancy Cannavale, professor of history here at Inserra.
I'm here with my women in migration class, and it's always struck me that Crealese didn't really have to have such strong women, or that many women at all, since this was mostly a male migration at that time. And I'm just curious if you can give us any insight into his thinking about why he makes why he has these prominent female figures, Charlotte Gainsbourg's character, the grandmother, even the wonderful scene where the women are coming to find their husbands that they've never met. It's just really a lot of attention to women in the film.
This you have to ask him, really. But I think that it's just his normal sensibility. He's just a sensitive person, and intelligent, so it doesn't exclude. I find it absurd, you know, when there are no women in movies or the woman is just a babe. I think very smart directors, they fall into this stupid trap. I don't know, it's because they are guys. So Emanuele is more like, I don't know, maybe he loves his mother more than anybody. But no, it's just, it's important. I recognize that, for instance, also in another director, Pedro Almodovar, the Spanish director. He makes beautiful movies, and his movies always have the best female characters. They are super interesting women in his movies, and he knows women. If you are an attentive person, and you are curious, and you are a director, I think you are fascinated by women, you can do a lot. No? It's much more interesting than just seeing the hot girl next to the guy. You know? So really, the reason, I don't know. But I think that it's true. He always has interesting characters. Yeah, pretty much in every film we did, yeah.
Right, in Grazie Simon,
Yeah.
wonderful female character.
Sì.
But Professor Carnevale's point is really important because, as we were saying in this class, the first wave was that of young male unskilled laborers for the most part. So his decision is quite revolutionary, right? And it really gives a depiction of the family as well. It allows him to look into all the different dynamics. A couple of other questions before we close. Yes?
I have a curiosity on a minor detail. Do you happen to know how is it that Crealesi selected Petralia?
Because Petralia is the town where I went to practice for the peasant. So the peasant was from Petralia, and so I thought it was that was my decision. Like when we did the scene, I just said down to Petralia because that was due. Do you know the town Petralia?
Sottano, Soprano.
Sottano. You from there?
No, I'm not, but my cousin's married.
Sottano. So. It's a small town, but very beautiful, and every time, like last summer, they showed the film there. Every time there is the moment that I say, I'm from Petralia, they go, they're very happy, and I love that place. So, because that's where I did my peasant fellowship. That's where
Place famous for its acting school now, right?
Sì, or contadino antico, to do the ancient farmer's way. And they were making fun of us because they would see me and Lito, the old man, with the plow, on our shoulders, and people were like, we don't use that stuff anymore. We use the tractors and whatever. But it was very beautiful. It was hard. Then another time I stayed with a shepherd with the kids, because the kids also, they had to be broken a little bit. Because one comes from the projects in Palermo, and the little one comes from the island of Lampedusa. And so they weren't really like country side per se. So we went for 2 weeks, lived with a shepherd on the mountains in Sicily. And that was really hard because we couldn't wash for 2 weeks. He put us in a little stone house with no heat, was cold in the mountain in the winter. And then at 4 a.m. he would pick us up to go milk the sheep. And when you milk the sheep have kind of a fat on their breasts that actually stays on your hands and it tracks all the other smells, and you just become a sheep. And then we were sleeping on a metal thing, spring bed. The only blanket was an old carpet. Like it was hard as a rock, which was really, really tough. Then after 2 weeks we couldn't take it anymore, and so we called to pick us up. Please pick us up, and so the assistant director came to pick us up. And we had to do the highway with the windows open in the winter because we were so stinky, like he couldn't bear it. But that was important. I think it's important that if you play such a different role, you do a little bit you leave a little bit of something. Just it stays in your memory, You think you deserve it.
Okay. One last question.
You can ask anything.
Yes?
Please.
So earlier when you mentioned like that you feel strong everything and like to America, like what told you to do that? Like I don't know. Was
You told me to do it.
No, like how'd you know?
Ah.
Could you repeat the question?
She asked me when I decided to come to America, I dropped everything. She said, what told me to do it? Look, it was weird, like, because I was 27, I was in Rome, I'd been living in Rome for 8 years, and I don't know, all of a sudden I didn't like Rome anymore, and then I was living with a woman I didn't like anymore, and then I came to New York, and New York was fantastic. I don't know, I just fell in love with New York, and everything worked. I stayed 2 weeks in New York before going back to Italy, and somebody left me an apartment with the keys, and every time there were 20 keys. Every time I got back to the apartment, the first key I chose was the right one. That's a symbol of and then everything else was going accordingly to the keys, like the keys. So it was magic, I don't know. And then I got back to Italy and I said, okay, that's it. I want to do this adventure of going. But I was scared, I was afraid. But you need to jump, sometimes and do scary things. And thank God I did it. Sometimes I love my country, I love to go back, and thank God now we can go back. It's not like in those days that you never go back. Now we can go back, I will have to work or pleasure. And I'm happy that I can go and just enjoy vacation, but I'm much happier that I came here. The problem is that when you leave the place you're from, you will never find your ideal place, and you will never be able to go back. Because now I'm in America, I like it, but it's never right, I'm always upset because why is this not like what? Like what? Like my idealization of my past in Italy. But then when I go to Italy, I don't like anything because it's not like I like to remember. I think that it wasn't like that. It's just my fantasy. So, and then you think about a third place that you want to go to, and I really don't know where it is. So we'll see.
So the perpetual immigrant.
Yes, then you're a perpetual immigrant.
Thank you very much.